Now, President Trump has returned from his first foreign tour, leaving US participation in the Paris climate deal still in question. At the G7 summit in Italy, he refused to recommit the United States to the accord. Mr. Trump says he'll make a final decision on whether the US will stay in the Paris climate agreement next week. The US is the second biggest emitter of greenhouse gases. Well, joining me is Johan Rockström. He's the director of the Stockholm Resilience Centre and a professor of environmental science at Stockholm University. Johan Rockström, US is the second biggest emitter. Surely if they leave the Paris Accord, it is going to set back global efforts to reduce temperatures.
Well, in the short term, it may slow down the pace. It might even threaten a few other, let's say, unconstructive countries to question their commitment to the Paris Agreement. But overall, remember that we've passed a tipping point. This is a legally binding, ratified global agreement with now 150 countries pushing decisively towards decarbonizing the world economy. So the US is really a minority in this case, with so strong support from business and states in the US to move towards decarbonization that it is very doubtful whether stepping out of the Paris Agreement will really have, really threaten our pathway towards delivering the Paris Agreement.
When you say we're past the tipping point, do you mean in terms of reversing climate change, or do you mean in terms of the push towards renewable energy?
I mean in terms of the push towards renewable energy, that we've passed the tipping point where renewable energy technologies are doubling every 5th to 6th year. So we're following an exponential curve globally. We know that it's now in economic par with fossil fuel energy systems. In fact, in many states in the world, renewable energy systems like wind and solar actually compete economically with conventional sources of energy from coal, natural gas, and oil. We see jobs being created more easily through renewable technologies. We see, in general, an enthusiasm, particularly when it comes to, for example, the transport sector, towards electrification, towards novel forms of biofuels. So it's quite interesting how we now see a contradiction in President Trump's administration in general, while questioning climate science and action on climate change on the one hand.
Johan, if we are moving towards a point where we may not need fossil fuels anymore, just briefly, is Donald Trump then setting the US back behind the rest of the world if he leaves the Paris Accord?
Definitely. That's why there's no large reason for concern at this point, at least, because clearly it will put the US in a much more economically disfavored position vis-a-vis its competitors around the world, as decarbonization and renewable energy is today the path towards jobs and growth.
Johan Rockström, Professor of Environmental Science at Stockholm University, thank you very much. Now, one of the founding members of the rock group, the Allman Brothers Band, Greg Allman, has died. He was 69.